The audience feels about this. Can we see that graphic? Tell me how you feel about this statement. Schools are not only destructive of intellect, but character. With very few exceptions, the social life of our schools is mean-spirited, competitive, status-seeking, snobbish, cruel, often violent, and full of talk about who went to whose party and who did not. How many agree with that? How many disagree? Schools are doing a wonderful job.
Well, I think they do a good job, and I think it depends on the individual, the people. I think the children that go to school make the difference in.
I think there are millions of young people being schlepped off to school every morning, and they don't want to go. It is an unpleasant, non-encouraging, non-attractive place for them to be, and they're going because they have to.
Oh, I disagree. I think children are going to not want to do whatever the adult person would like for them to do.
It's innate in children, then, not to
want to do what adults would like for them to do.
But why should learning be such a crock for so many kids? Shouldn't learning be exciting?
I think it is. If you have the proper environment in most schools, the teachers, are trying.
The teachers are mad at the parents?
Oh, I don't think so. My son is a school teacher, and I hear both sides.
The parents are mad at the teachers?
No, I think they get together and understand each other. Eventually, there may be some...
The school board is mad at the teachers?
No, I don't think so.
The kids are mad at this teacher? No, you don't agree. This is all negative stuff media kind of keys on. And
no, I don't think to the extent. I think there's children that are not going to want to go to school. But that particular child's not going to want to do anything necessarily. And as far as socially, I think it does the kids good to be with other people, rather than be kept at home, where I'm sure there's values that are learned at home that would be better than maybe you could learn at school. But you have to live in a real world, and this is the world we live in. We go out...
A bureaucratic world where they test you, and you got to get a number on a IBM card or you're no good, and then the colleges won't have you, and you feel stupid.
Not at all. My children were raised in a small community where there's parents that say, oh, the school system's terrible. Well, there's something wrong with each school system, but our children go on to college, and our children achieve, and like I say, we have good young Americans that...
Supporters.
If children don't like adults telling them what to do, I should have said adults don't like adults telling them what to do either.
Let me introduce you to John. I'll get to you in just a moment. John Holt is the author of the statement that I began our program with, an educator and a man who has presided over, not necessarily because he sought the job, but in a sense he's the moral leader of a movement in this country on the part of a significant number of American families to take their kids out of school and teach them at home. Now, how do you feel about that? Let's talk to the Kinmons first. Richard and Joyce, you're from Utah. You have several children running around here, all looking loved and healthy. Who wants to start it here? Why in the world would you have taken your kids out of the public school system?
Because I enjoy teaching them myself. Not necessarily because there was anything wrong with our public schools, but just because I like to do it myself.
We probably have some of the best schools, I would say, around. Utah has some real good schools.
But now you're sounding like the Chamber of Commerce. Yeah. You're saying...
No, what I'm trying to say, we have good schools, and we really didn't take them out because, we found something wrong. Yeah. And it kind of evolved.
You've had no trouble with this, taking them out of schools?
Not a whole lot, but I've also realized something else, too. When you send your children off to school, you're making some statements about what your home is like as a learning center. And you're saying there's a better place to learn. And you're also making some statements about what you're like as a mother. And you're saying there's somebody else who's better than your father and I are at teaching.
Peter and Bridget Van Dam are also here. You're a Rhode Island family. Providence area?
Providence itself.
Providence itself, all right. There aren't that many areas outside of Providence. The Van Dams have 3 children, and you're really in it now. This is a very controversial, politically difficult situation for you because, as I understand it, you've been arrested.
2 times.
All right, let's talk about, first of all, what's your speech? Why don't you want your kids in the public school?
That was not the point. The point is not that we didn't want them in public school. They went to school and they've had the experience, but they seemed to suffer more than enough, and they wanted to stay home.
Why did they suffer? What do you mean?
They didn't want the regulated type of learning that was available in school, and they wanted to just be with the parents and with each other, with brother and sisters.
They wanted to exercise personal liberty. I remember Jessica at the age of 2.5 in nursery school coming home after about 4 weeks saying, I don't like them telling me when I have to eat my cookie, or interrupting me when I'm drawing my picture, or making me sit around in a circle to sing a song when I want to do something else.
But doesn't the, see now the other audience is grumbling. You understand the faith? What's the matter? What's the matter with that? Huh? Well, come on now. You got to help here. What's the matter?
Where's the discipline?
It grows. The discipline is growing as the children grow older. I don't think you can ask the same amount of discipline of a 2-year-old that you ask from a college student.
Phil, let me jump in here because we've run.
John Holt commenting. Go ahead, John.
We've gone right to the heart of what one of the really big problems of the schools are, and that is they think discipline means only somebody tells you what to do and then you have to do it. And there's nothing in there about an internal discipline. Now, any half-smart Army sergeant knows that a discipline which is based on nothing except fear is not going to work in a moment of crisis. I served on a submarine in World War II, and believe me, fear was the smallest part of what kept the discipline on that ship.
But I can feel this audience's energy directed in a negative way toward the Van Dams. There is this sense that somehow if you let a child, if you allow a child to accommodate the inconvenience or to refuse to tolerate the inconvenience of taking a nap when all the rest take a nap, or take a cookie when all the others in the kindergarten take a cookie, what you get sooner or later is a very spoiled child.
But that's not true. Let me, or you talk, and then I'll add something to it.
The child is learning a disrespect for discipline when she's being interfered with so much. Here she is paying deep attention to her artwork, and suddenly an adult interferes with her for the sake of a routine.
But there's going to be a lot of interferences throughout
life. They can start in the family, in the home, and then gradually, as she requires more activity within the community, she's going to deal with those inconveniences, as they have done.
Phil, I know a homeschooling family in Connecticut whose oldest daughter has been out of school for many years. This summer she got an NROTC scholarship to college, and part of the deal was when she had to go and take basic infantry training. I mean, the whole bit, on your belly in the mud, fire the guns, etc. Now here's that real life you folks are all talking about. This girl did brilliantly. She got a medal in marksmanship, grenade throwing. She was such an outstanding cadet. They've taken her on a special trip to Germany. She left just a couple of days ago. I mean, this, you know, that's about as real life can get, isn't it? So that worry just doesn't work out in practice.
I think it's mainly having faith in your own children and trusting that when they want to do something, they're able to do it.
Back here.
But through homeschooling, I think that the kids lose all the contact with their peers, and you know, school isn't just the interaction with the teachers and all the other students, which is good, but all the activities and, you know, cheerleading and band and football and everything like that. I think that's very important, and none of that, all that would be lost through homeschooling, I think.
That isn't lost through homeschooling. They're still able to do those things if they want to, but how many friends does a person need to be well socialized? And do they necessarily have to be the same age? Don't you gain a lot more from socializing with people who know more than you do?
Mike Shear is here. He's a person who was raised in a homeschool situation. Is that right, Mike?
Right.
You share this woman's view, do you?
Back there?
Yes.
Yes, I'm much more inclined to think that way. What I hear them saying, I really don't like to hear at all. The school systems that we have, the public school systems and the parochial systems that we have, are imperfect school systems. But if they were perfect school systems, then they wouldn't be any good to us, because they wouldn't develop a child and prepare a child for school,
yes,
for adult life, for business.
Right. Let's not make schools perfect, because then they'll be misled into thinking life is. If you'll forgive me, Mr. Shear, that's a clarion call for non-progress. And you're certainly not here to tell us that you believe that the American system of education is in good order today.
Oh, I think we should strive to improve our school systems as best we can. Sure. Surely there's a big difference from one school to another, from the Chicago cities versus the Portland cities where I come from.
Right.
Sure, let me
schools.
jump in again, Phil.
I've got something else I'd like to say too.
All right.
And that is, there's a lot you can learn at home, but it's good for the child to get out of the home, get away from mom and dad, and talk to other people, because when they become adults, they've got that problem.
Listen to that.
You gotta hear the other side.
Okay. I absolutely disagree. I absolutely disagree. If you go, we are here to live in a community, right? We are born, we are raised in a community. Well, the children, one of the things we do, we go in the community. There's the public library has been great. There are all kinds of community centers, great.
So you're saying your children are not being socially deprived, so to speak?
Oh, never.
Can I just meet one of them for just a second here? This is Julie. Julie Van Dam is... Julia, beg your pardon. Julia is age 26.
11.
Julia, you did go to public schools?
Yes, I did.
You probably have some difficulty remembering, because I think it was kindergarten, was it, or first grade, or what year?
I think it was second grade.
Okay. Do you remember the experience or anything about it? Can you share with us some thoughts you have about what it was like when you were there?
Well, the teachers were nice to me, some of them, but I can't really remember too much.
Do you remember anything bad?
Yes.
What?
Well, I got kind of beat up sometimes.
From other kids?
Right.
Like fights?
Yeah.
You remember why?
No.
You never can you? After the fight, you wonder what it was about. Was this central to your own decision?
Well, it wasn't her being beaten up. She was in school for 4.5 years, and right almost from the beginning, she started taking sabbaticals. She wouldn't be in school for 6 weeks in the spring of each year. Yeah. Because the regime was just too tiring for the child. Her sense of freedom or whatnot was taken away from her. She was isolated.
Life is like that in the United States of America.
She was isolated.
Life is like that.
And so, because life is like that, we have to accept it. I don't agree with you. She was isolated, in a sense, imprisoned or incarcerated from the real world. She couldn't meet our adult friends or have, say, her apprenticeship that she's had at a natural food restaurant.
All right. Yeah. All right. We'll give you. Yes.
Phil, the purpose of homeschooling is not isolation. The purpose is to do with your kids what you would like to do, but there are so many other ways that can be socialized. Brownies, scouts for the boys.
Yes, you're obviously active in this. Tell us how and what.
Well, it's your fault, Phil.
Because we invited you.
No. A couple years ago, I caught the tail end of John Holt being here. At the time, my daughter was 3.5, I think. We were very concerned because she was teaching herself at 3 what I, as a teacher, knew would be taught in the first grade. And if she is learning this at 3, what's she going to do that whole year in first grade? Be bored to tears. I was afraid she would lose that desire to learn. I also felt like she was not ready to be shoved ahead 1 or 2 grades socially because she was shy at the time. She's outgrown this. So to me, when I saw it, it was like, that's the solution.
And you're an Illinoisan, are you?
Yes.
And you're getting away with this? How come you're not in jail? And what are you doing?
We have the support of our local school system.
This is Pontiac, is it?
This is Pontiac, Illinois.
Okay. So, all right, there's 1,000 questions here, but and we have to break, but this isn't practical. You know, I think it is not, because most parents are not going to do what you do.
No, I'm not asking every parent to do it.
And who's watching you?
No.
And well-intentioned and loving as you are.
You might want to put this up later. This is the curriculum that we hand in to the superintendent in Pontiac, Illinois.
You do, huh?
So that they have an idea.
You're playing ball with the establishment, in a sense.
Play ball with the establishment.
All right, language, arts.
Math, science, social studies, music, PE, and art. They want us to cover all the areas that are required by the state.
Yeah. How old is your daughter, is it?
Dawn is 7 and Nathan is 6.
All right, you're not worried that they're going to be raised in a vacuum and not be...
No. They're in soccer, they're in brownies, she's taking square dance lessons.
Right. Your husband, you're still married? Yeah, good, all right, good. Well, we're very pleased to hear that. You'll stand for just a second. So you're obviously you're cooperative in this.
Certainly.
Are you one of the teachers at home?
No.
You're working outside the home,
I work outside the home.
But that's not true. He takes Dawn out when he changes the oil in the car.
What do you do? Are you a professional type?
I'm a social worker at a community mental health center, and I'm the director of children and adolescent services there. So I do a lot of work with parents, teachers,
All right.
schools,
But
kids.
does your income allow you to stay home and be the live-in school teacher, mother, dishwasher, and all that stuff?
This is the irony. I teach part-time at a preschool.
Oh, so you are in the formal education system for income, but you teach your own kids at home.
Yes.
And how long are you going to keep this up?
As long as we like it. And
What if they want to go to school?
If they want to go to school, they're welcome to go.
So if they want to go to high school and be cheerleaders and he wants to play football and all that stuff, that's going to be okay with you?
Well, I don't like football. I like soccer.
All right. But how do you know that he's going to be ready and his knowledge and information you've given him will marry up with the system as it exists when he enters it?
Partly because I'm a teacher and I know the system, and partly because every year I have gone up to the school system and asked for their curriculum so that I know.
Thanks both. We're a little long here, but before we, just briefly, John, give us your briefest speech about numbers, why you think this is, and your own very brief overview on the system that we've got and why so many people are running away from it.
Very brief. First, some people are obviously very happy with their kids' school experiences. I'm not trying to make them unhappy. If they're happy, I'm happy. Some people are not happy, and some people want to do it themselves for other reasons. What I'm saying is, in the first place, that the Constitution and the United States Supreme Court have ruled that they have that right. Now, most educators don't know that. Two very important Supreme Court decisions.
Subject to review by various courts. There's hardly been a definitive decision on this matter. Ask the Van Dams. They're under arrest.
Well,
if it's so clear, how come they're going to jail?
Because the people who are trying to put them in jail don't know the law.
All right, okay, fine. But in any event, let's understand that we have your opinion about that.
Right.
And there is yet to be any kind of real in granite ruling on it. But I don't want that to...
Sure.
And you wanted to proceed and make what point?
I want to make the point that if people want to do this, they have a constitutional right to do it. They can do it, and there are a lot of people who will help them do it.
Yeah, but all right, well, we'll ask those questions. What's wrong with the school system now, and why are you such a... You're a very influential voice within the community of educators, and you've really had some very negative things to say about what we've got now.
Well, I can answer that very quickly. The schools would be a lot better if they were a lot smaller, like Marva Collins, if the teachers were the bosses in their own classrooms, which for the most part they're not, if there was a wide variety of schools, and if parents could choose the schools they wanted.
We're in Chicago with parents who are teaching their children at home and with educator John Holt, and we hope you'll join us. Is the caller there?
I am.
Look how thrilled this young man is with our show. Yes. You had a brief comment.
Yes, I got a brief comment. I take objection to the first interviewee.
Yes.
I would like to know what she considers the role of mothers. Not all of us are qualified to teach.
How many?
Yes, you are.
Hang on just a second. How many children do you have?
I have 3.
Ages?
Well, they're grown now. It's 5, etc. down.
All right, so you don't like this idea of homeschooling?
I didn't say I didn't like it. I don't think it should be a reality. There's no...
It is a reality. It is a reality.
Well, what's the numbers on this, John? What would you bet?
Oh, guessing 10,000 or so families.
In America?
In the United States, yeah. Maybe another 1,000 in Canada.
I got a question for the caller. What does it really take to be qualified to teach?
Yeah, I know you didn't mean to, but you just insulted all the teachers. See, that's the problem with that comment. I'm not saying your question is not worthy of consideration, but that's the reason for this.
It's a problem with the teachers. Now, let me tell you something you don't know. In 4 states now, the courts have challenged the state educational authorities to produce any evidence that certified teachers could teach better than non-certified, and in 4 states, they were not able to produce any such evidence. There isn't any such evidence. It's a myth that you have to go to some kind of education college.
Let me answer this caller, too. Now, she wanted to know whether I was qualified. I had to go out and learn things, and she wanted to know the role of a mother. It kind of depends on what you want to be. I didn't want to be the laundry lady and the cook and the house cleaner, only I wanted something more. Why should I give the best part to somebody else while I stay home and clean the kitchen?
I think that...
Just give me a second.
I have 2 questions. First of all, do all the people that teach their children at home follow a curriculum like this woman just said? And secondly, this is to the Van Dams. You said that you want your children to have the freedom to do what they want, but what happens when they get into the job situation and their employer tells them that they have to do certain things? They can't run back home to mom and dad.
Julia's already in a job situation. She has an apprenticeship at a health food restaurant. Yes. She's been out with the buying.
Excuse me.
She makes the bread.
Julia,
she chops the vegetables.
Where do you work? Might as well get the plug in here, too.
I work at a natural foods restaurant.
Amara's restaurant.
All right. Thanks, Dad. And what do you do? Do you stock, or do you handle, do you take care of customers, or what?
Well, I help prepare the food.
You do? And you're 11?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Still, there are 3 other kids who
yes,
work
let me get Andrea in the act here. This is Andrea Kinmont.
They're in the job world.
From Utah. Andrea is, I don't want to be paternalistic about this because you're obviously a very intelligent, attractive young woman, not a child anymore. You are 14, 15?
15.
And you go to a Mormon school for religious instruction about an hour every day.
Yes.
You tell me you also go to the public school for a drama class.
Yes, I do.
But everything else you learn at home.
Uh-huh.
With Mom and Dad, whom we've just met here.
No, mostly she learns on her own.
She does.
Yeah. She's too old for me. She doesn't need me much anymore.
But how do you know what she's doing and where she's going, and you know?
Because I check in with them a lot.
Yeah.
That's one of my roles, Phil, is to interview each one of the children every week and get the feedback, talk about life problems and curriculum.
I see. You also work, Andrea.
Uh-huh.
What do you do?
I work at Taco Time. I do everything, cook, help customers.
Well, is the caller listening?
Yes, I am.
This is pretty impressive, huh?
Can I say?
I mean, how many of us have kids you've got to, you know, kick them out the door to get them to find a job?
I want to say that there are many different ways of going about it. You don't have to be a teacher. You can go and find a tutor. If you want, if you feel more comfortable, you can go barter. I am what I've done over the past year or so is I am teaching an art class at the Montessori school, and in exchange, the Montessori teacher tutors our children with all that lovely material.
Yeah.
There are many ways to go about it.
Yes. Andrea, do you have friends? There's concern that if we teach our kids at home, that they somehow won't be socialized, you know, that they'll be isolated and it will be difficult for them to engage in any kind of group activity.
I don't think so. I think a lot of them are interested, and I think they support us a lot, and I have a lot of friends. I meet all different ages of people because I'm in drama, and I feel a lot better socialized for that.
But isn't there some part of you that would like to go to school with all the other kids?
No, because the hour I spent at high school, I think that's enough, and I wouldn't want to be there any more than that. I don't know, it's maybe a negative attitude and things.
Can you tell us more about that, what you sense when you do go to that high school?
Because the kids don't want to be there, and they don't like school or things like that.
You sense that, do you? And the bell rings and everybody moves from class to class?
Yeah.
Do you root for the football team, or wouldn't you ever want to be a cheerleader or all of the other good things that...
No, I'm not really into sports, drama mostly.
Okay. Do any of the other young people with whom you associate ask you about what you're doing, and are they curious about you? Because
Oh yes, there's a lot of people that are really interested.
what do they say? What do they ask?
Usual questions.
Yeah. Is it like they want to do it? Is that the sense that you have?
No, I don't. I think, well, some of them say that would be nice, I'd like to do that, and some are just interested and like to know what we do.
Yeah. We are not going to worry about Andrea. Yes, thanks.
A lot of time high school kids are too socialized. They're too into the peer group, and they cannot break away.
Mike Shear, let's get this straight now. Mike was raised in a homeschooling situation and is sorry about it. When you went to college, you had some problems, huh?
It was very difficult to adjust to the system, period, because I'd been completely out of the system from 2nd grade, and actually I went back to school 11th grade, and it was extremely difficult to get used to. Well, I never did, even through 10 years of college, to get my degree in business ad.
Could I ask Mike a question?
But my question that I wanted to state was that, you know, I'm sure that you're qualified to be a teacher, and you are too, and I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is, like Phil was just getting with her, is interaction with other children. There's so much learning.
This hardly looks like a socially deprived young woman here. But not to dismiss your point.
Yeah, it's that Julia has just started going back to school.
All right. You're 11 and you just began?
Yes.
And how's it going?
Good.
You mean back to a formal or to a public school?
Yes, private school.
Private school. Do you feel uncomfortable now that you...
No, not at all. It's fine. It's fun to be there.
A duck in water.
All right. Okay, we thank you for that observation, and let me get a caller in here. Yes. We haven't much time. Is the caller there?
Yes, I am.
Briefly.
I just wanted to say that I'm for this home education because I myself have been feeling very under pressure in my community that is sending off 2-year-olds to school, and I feel that is way too young. 2, 3.
I have my 2-year-old in daycare.
Can I ask him? Okay,
well, hang on a minute. We've got this out on the floor here for just a moment. Let's just, as a matter of fact, I'm not going to suggest that we should pressure anybody to do anything, but there's a considerable body of evidence to suggest that birth to language to age kindergarten is a very important learning time for young people, and it's a time often when we've got children lying, perhaps unchallenged, in an isolated room in the house while mother is busy about her own responsibilities. I'm not sure what the consequence of that would be, but I'll give Educator Holt a chance to speak to that in a moment. You're thinking about taking your kids out of school?
Yes, I am. I have.
How many kids do you have?
I have 4, and I'm expecting another one. I have the 2-year-old.
You can't do it. You couldn't possibly do it. You'll have a nervous breakdown.
I won't.
Don't. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Yes, you can. What? You don't think it'll, you think you could handle it?
Yes, I do.
Yes, you can.
I agree. We'll be back in just a moment. Teach Your Own is the title of a book written by John Holt, just one of several he's written on the whole business of education. Say what you want about John Holt, he is hardly trying to be popular here, and I think that because
I'm not trying to be unpopular.
No, I know you're not, but the point is there is a terrible pressure not to rock this billion-dollar boat called public education.
$100 billion. $100 billion boat, folks. Listen, there's an article in the current issue of Chicago Magazine. I didn't write it. It says, "Can the schools be saved?" It was a cover story of Time Magazine last summer. It said, "Help, teachers can't teach." Cover story of Newsweek said, "Why the public schools are flunking." I didn't write those articles. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that these problems originated with me. In any case, I say again, if you're happy with what they're providing, good, good. I'm not trying to take it away from you. But there are a lot of people who aren't happy, and I'm saying that's what that book is about. That's what our magazine, Growing Without Schooling, is about. You have another choice. You can do it another way.
Over here, just a...
But I feel you can do it within the system. What you have is a commune. You're taking away from, you're isolating.
Commune is called family.
Well, yes, but they have a commune, isolation, rejecting of society. The Van Dams had some options when they saw the teacher who was grabbing the paper away in the process. You can do something about that. You can change schools. You can find caring, loving teachers. There are a lot of them out there, and you can go through the system.
Yeah. But if we found something better, why should we go back to that? And our children in homeschool are not isolated. It's the children who are locked into a classroom who are isolated from what's going on in the world.
Over here, please.
The question I have is, what do you do when they're going to look for a job and they ask, the requirement for the job is they need a high school diploma?
Well, we're a private school. They'll have a diploma. Robbie's 11, and he has a job, and Richie's 13, and he has a job.
And that employer would accept that as a standard?
They love them because these kids work well.
I know in that same family I spoke of in Connecticut, the 15-year-old has started working as an Avon representative. She's the youngest one in the history of that company. She's doing extremely well at it. Now, what's this about the real world? These people know more about the real world than you ever learn in a schoolroom.
When they're at home, do you give them tests and grade them? How do you know how they're progressing?
Well, we're with them every day. How could we not know what they're doing?
You don't do any tests or anything? When they go to school, there's a test, and they have to pass the test, and then they fail.
I don't need to compare them with other children.
The little girl here, that one looks so well put together because she's had some drama training, perhaps. But this little one here.
Well, wait a minute. Be careful, Beat.
She comes through great.
Yes, well, they both do, don't they? Yes, we're very thrilled about that. Let me just get somebody on the line. Hi, is the caller there? Is the caller there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
I would just like to say that one of the main reasons that children don't want to go to school today, and one of those is discipline and humiliation they receive from their teachers. In discipline, children are expelled from school. During this time, they are not given their homework, and they're being punished. They are sent home. You stay at home for 10 days, and you come back to school, and you're supposed to pick up just like things were when you left off. But your classes are all 10 days ahead of you. You are not not many teachers, they're mad at you. They're not going to give you extra time to help you make up for this time you've lost.
Yeah, hang on just a second. You support that?
Yeah, I've been in school for, I was brought through school up until my college year, and now I'm going back to, I'm going to be a homeschooler because that's the way my stepmother's raising my little brother. And I just, the advantages, what she's talking about, you go back to school after you've been sick or something, and you're supposed to know what they were all talking about, and when you come back, you're supposed to be able to take a test and do as well as everyone else when you've missed that much. And it's just, the pressures are...
And your feelings about attitudes and so on, how would you evaluate teachers' attitudes, kids?
Well, I think you can get some good teachers, and I think that you can get some bad teachers. I had a teacher last year who was very, it could have been my imagination, but I think he was down on women. I found it later on. I was interested in going to work for the National Geographics eventually, and he told me that not even to bother, that it wasn't even worth it. And later on I found out that he had gotten turned down from it. So it's a lot of personality conflicts that you come up with.
Anybody in this section over here while I'm here? Yes, Mr. Stan?
Well, just overall, I feel like we're stereotyping homeschooling vis-a-vis this view of us sitting at home in the kitchen with a tiny little book that says, I will teach my child to read. We don't do it that way. We do it by using our resources. The city, Chicago is an ideal place. We have the Art Institute, we have the Field Museum, and we're lucky here. But we use the world. We do not sit in the kitchen and count rocks and put them in a...
I understand that. But if it catches on, I don't think you can get out from under the anxiety that's generated by this phenomenon. It should. First of all, we've already got it in Christian schools. There are Christian schools where teachers where teachers are not certified. No attempt is made to determine what kind of education they have, how they relate to the pupils.
Phil,
not to mention religious bigotry that is very much a part of the theology that's being taught to 6, 7, and 8-year-old minds who, when they are 18 years old, may or may not know the multiplication tables and may have some very destructive attitudes about people who are not Christian. Now, how do you speak to those problems?
Let's talk about that certification again. The Kentucky State Board of Education tried to get the private religious schools in Kentucky declared illegal on the grounds that their teachers weren't certified. And in the court case, the lawyer defending the schools challenged the state, I said this before, challenged the state to show any evidence that certified teachers could teach better than uncertified. And the judge in the case ruled, and these were his exact words, that the state had not produced a scintilla of such evidence. Now, you can very easily verify for yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, just write the schools and ask for their catalogs, that the leading private schools of this country, the longest established, highest prestige, most academically demanding, have very few people on their faculties with education, training, or certificates. There's no proof that this stuff works. Teaching's not a mystery, and you can do it if you want to.
And we'll be back in just a moment. Hi, is the caller there?
Yes, thank you. First of all, let me just state that I grew up in South America. I went to school there, and it was a super strict school where we had uniforms, and we had to learn every subject. We didn't have the choice of subjects like kids do here in school, where they take cooking and typing, etc. My question mostly, now I'm really confused because I'm not too sure about the American school system, and I have a daughter, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
We don't have much time. Briefly tell us what bothers you about the American school system.
Well, the fact that it's very impersonal. Schools are so big, I don't think teachers have time to get to know their students. Students don't get time to really make close friends because they're switching from one class to the other and changing friends all the time. But on the other hand, my question was to the Van Dams. They say that they don't like the fact that their kids have a certain routine at school, and that at home they have more freedom. Does that mean that they can eat when they want, go to bed when they want, get up when they want?
The Van Dams commenting.
There's a family routine that's evolving as we work together and bring other people into the home, tutors or outside activities. Everything has to be scheduled, budgeted, and operated on.
And I'd say real quickly, too, that children are like hothouse plants. And there is a time when they need the protection of their home environment, and there's a time when they're ready to go out. And all children are not the same. Only a parent can decide that. You can discipline a child to death. It grows with the child.
Over here.
The trouble with that, too, is that the child learns no self-discipline. They have to learn that within.
Under what circumstances do they learn no self?
I think these people misunderstand me. Under the circumstances of public school. You learn self-discipline in the home. You learn it from example. You don't learn it from someone telling you what to do all the time.
I think you learn it also from the child, maybe looking at the child, watching and allowing the child to unfold.
But what happens to the people who don't do the competent kind of job that these three families are doing? What happens to children who have learning disabilities?
Mr. Holt wants you to know that you are a better teacher than you think you are. That's a central point of much of the...
Let me jump in on that. One thing that has been done in the public schools quite a number of time over the years is this is an experimented reading instruction. What they do is take 5th graders and have them teach 1st graders. And the schools that have done this have consistently found that the 5th graders are as good at teaching 1st graders to read as their regular teachers.
Or what happens to children who don't tell their parents that they're not happy
Listen,
with
about
this
learning disabled, let me tell you this. That we get a lot of letters at Growing Without Schooling. That's this magazine we publish, which is about that. We get hundreds of letters from parents. And a lot of people say, our kids went to school knowing how to read and knowing how to write. And within 6 months, they were reading letters backwards and writing letters backwards and doing these things. And we took them out of the schools, and after a while, that cleared up. This learning disability stuff, that's, well, we could take a whole program on that. That's mostly a
How
stress
many
reaction.
kids have an LD label put on them without the research? It has no definition. You think there's something wrong with your kid, and what you might have is an extraordinarily energetic child who is not marrying up very well with the law and order environment of the school system.
I'd like to quote Mark Twain. He said that except for the time I spent in school, my whole life has been a learning experience. I got straight A's, but I don't think I learned very much. Now I do research on my own, and I think I learn a lot more.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wondered, I don't mind that you're teaching your children at home, but I get the impression that you're trying to tell all of us we have to, too.
No. Let me try it again. I've said it twice. I thought I said it plainly. Let me try it once more. If you're happy with the school experience, fine. I'm happy. I'm not trying to make you unhappy or change your mind. What I'm saying is if you don't want that, if you don't like it, if you want to do it yourself, you have that constitutional right. You have the capacity. Anything you need to learn to do it, you can find out from the people who are already doing it. You can find out from us. You can do it if you want to, but you don't have to if you don't want to.
Over here, John.
You know, one interesting question is, why is recess the most popular subject? And when I think back...
I got to get in here. You know the other thing that kills me about schools? They're always looking for reasons not to have it.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what... You know, and how many teachers go to those teachers' conferences on the days that you don't have to go to school because there's a teachers' conference? And how come they have to have the day off before the teachers' conference so they can prepare for the teachers' conference?
And what about all the sick leave?
You mean written into the contracts?
Yeah. Right. Well, you know, the other thing is, what do you really learn in elementary school? I mean, what do you really learn practically?
Okay.
Isn't it really socialization?
There are two things going on. One is teaching skills, and one is a collection of facts. If you teach your children skills, they can collect their own facts. They don't need to go to school and have somebody shovel it in.
I'd like to know the length of time you devote to the studies during the day.
I spend about a half an hour individually with each child and about an hour reading altogether.
And the Van Dams?
Varies incredibly.
So it's not a rigid thing. It's not like from 2 to 4 or anything like that. All right, I'll get you in. How much do you...
But how much time do teachers give?
You're a homeschooler, right?
I'm both.
All right.
How much time do the children that go to the public school get individually with the teacher per week? It's very low, right, John?
Very low.
And we'll be back in just a moment. Is the caller there? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm 16 years old. I've been going to a public school since kindergarten, and I'd just like to say I'm very happy. I'm having a wonderful experience in a public school.
Let's hear it for the school.
I don't understand how...
Yeah, hang on just a second.
I think a good deal of the reason people don't want to put children in public schools is because they're very scared about the public school. But it really, as long as you go in feeling like you can do something and not having any apprehension, I think you can have a great time in a public school. And I just don't see how kids who are taught at home get everything that I get in a public school.
Okay, hang on just a minute. All right, the audience agrees with you.
I don't understand.
Yes.
I don't understand how people like mothers would have time for this. It's really hard.
I just have a comment from Mr. Scheer. I was taught to read by my grandmother, who was a teacher, by the time I was 3 years old, but I went to public school, and I enjoyed it, and I really got a good deal out of it.
You said that you were under arrest. Are you still under arrest, or are you off the hook, or are you...
Under arrest. The problem is, what we feel is there should be diversity, a lot of different choices for parents as well as for the children. Children should be able to say, I would like to go to this school, I would like to be home. And what they are doing in our situation is there's only one choice if you send your children to school.
These are the Van Dams, Providence, Rhode Island, the state authorities versus this family that wants to homeschool.
What they're doing...
Will they send you to jail?
Will they send you to jail, they want to know.
They threaten it sometime.
They threaten it.
They threaten to take... And you have to understand, Phil, that a lot of the reason that these people do this is to try to intimidate other families out of doing it. Has nothing to do with the needs or benefit of the child. Has nothing to do with the law or the Constitution.
And not everybody has trouble. We don't have any trouble.
No, not everybody does. Some schools are very nice about it.
Isn't that the next step if you don't use the school system, not to pay school taxes?
People pay taxes who don't use the school system.
Yes. Yes, all right. Yes, ma'am.
Don't you feel this whole issue has come up because of the poor quality of the teachers?
It doesn't matter.
And if you teach your children to a certain age, eventually they'll have to go on to a higher education, and do you feel they will be better qualified to be teachers?
There may be some failures at home. Mr. Scheer believes he was a failure in homeschool, but aren't there some failures in the public school system too?
I don't feel like I was a failure at homeschool. I just feel that because of the fact that I was isolated,
okay,
and
but
that I didn't have other children to compete with in a classroom situation,
that's a failure.
that I did not gain.
Okay, but let's get some more facts here.
Here's another
there was an
fact.
article, hang on, Peter. There was an article in the paper just the other day ago about the University of California. They have a lot of homeschooled kids going into the university system, and the article said, the reporter said, surprisingly, these homeschool students do very well in the California university system.
And all right, you wanted to make what point with so little time?
Very quickly, I'd like to make one comment. Everyone today is talking
Hold it
about
just a moment, please.
socialization of the children. One of the reasons I'm looking for an alternative for my child is because of the type of socialization that I see going on in the elementary schools. Mean, competitive, cruel, insensitive behavior between the children that most people say, well, that's natural, that's children. I don't think it is, and I don't think it's necessary.
The world is like
My
that.
question is, what about college? Do these kids, have you known any kids that...
He just answered that. He's saying that they can go to college, that there's evidence that children who are homeschooled get into the swim of it, and there's no...
Engineering and medicine and all these...
MIT does not require a high school diploma for you to gain admittance.
But they're going to love you for that statement. I'm sure it's true, but we can only speculate on what the admissions office is going to hear as a result. Yeah.
I taught my daughter to read at 2.5, but I didn't feel that I was qualified to continue teaching her, and I put her in the public school.
Yeah. What is your education?
Why not? There are lots of
did you go to, you went to high school?
Yes, in college.
And you graduated from college?
Yes.
With a degree in?
Bachelor of Fine Arts.
Do you understand that there are a number of teachers out there who perhaps don't have the academic kind of background that you have? And why is it that we have this low self-image about our own ability to teach? What is it that those teachers have that you don't have? Are they smarter than you?
I guess I felt they were qualified in areas that I wasn't qualified in.
Yeah.
If a parent can trust themselves to bear these children and raise them from age birth to roughly 5 years old, they teach them some of the most important things in their lives at that point.
Yeah.
Why can't they trust themselves to go further?
Because I'd like to try and answer that. I don't think we want this job.
That's right.
We do not want this job.
And those of us that want it...
And there is and let's be honest with ourselves. For all the wonderful things the school system has done, and nobody has taken this kind of responsibility under themselves. Millions and millions of kids, we've given ourselves the responsibility of publicly educating. This is a big deal. So we deserve a lot of credit for that. But let's get this in. The schools get our kids out from under our feet.
That's
and
right.
In that sense, and as long as they're providing that service, there aren't that many of us that are going to say when somebody in the system stands up in our culture with credentials like John Holt and saying, maybe you can do this better. No, I'm not qualified. I can't do this.
But those of us that do want to do it. We just want people to understand why we're doing it.
You don't want to be harassed by a state
Exactly.
authority.
We don't want people thinking...
Yeah, but I don't know whether you're being totally honest with about the consequence of this thing if it ever catches on. If it catches on, you're going to have all kinds of unevenly educated children.
We have all kinds of unevenly educated children coming from the public schools.
All right, you're saying it can't be worse.
Nobody holds the schools up to the standards that everybody wants to hold parents up to.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
With your request.
Teach your own. John Holt's thesis on why, if you choose, he says with emphasis, you ought to be able to teach on your own. The other point about education we ought to get in is, you know, we say we admire teachers and respect them, but I don't think we mean it. We don't pay them. You know, our attitude about them is certainly different than our attitude about a vice president who's with IBM or a stockbroker. And we seem to be kidding ourselves in a lot of
services provided and promoted.